Hey Skeeters, we're going to be talking about Standard 5A, so let's take a look and see what that says. Alright, so Standard 5A states, analyze nonlinear plot development, for example, flashbacks, foreshadowing, subplots, parallel plot structures, and compare it to linear plot development. So the keywords here that we're going to look at are nonlinear plot, and we're comparing that to the linear plot. So you might be thinking, well, what is nonlinear plot? So let's look at it. So here we have your normal plot line, okay, has all the pieces to a piece of literature or a story. The exposition where it begins, the rising action building up to the climax, which is the tip top of the story, and then the turning point, the falling action, and the resolution, okay? That is a normal, and it flows straight forward to the end, okay? That's the normal flow of a story, the linear plot structure. Here we have a visual of what a nonlinear plot is. So if we start the story here, we might flow forward for a while and flow forward for a while, but then once we get to this point in the story, something happens and takes us back to the middle of the story, okay? And then kind of shoots us on the other end to show the ending. So a nonlinear plot is a non-straight line. Okay, so how this one is a straight line and it flows all the way through. This one is a line, but it reverts backwards and then goes back to the end. Okay, it's kind of confusing in words, but I'm about to show you in video form. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of movie examples, and hopefully that will clear things up for you a little bit. Okay, so that's just the opening scene from Toy Story, and as you know, if you've seen the movie before, it continues to flow in a straight line, and we go through Andy's birthday party, and he gets a new toy. That is all introduced to the Andy's Toy World. Okay, so there's no reverting back and forth in this film. Okay, it's all straightforward, and it's all sequential. Is the word I was looking for. Okay, it falls in order. Linear plot, so it's falling in a line. Now, some of you may have seen this movie before. It's called Remember the Titans. The whole entire plot line is not, it's not non-linear, but the opening scene is considered a non-linear plot structure. So I'm going to show it to you and then I'll explain how in just a second.
high school football is a way of life. It's bigger than Christmas Day. My daddy coached in Alexandria. He worked so hard, my mama left him. But I stayed with Coach. He needed me on that field. Up until 1971 in Alexandria, there was no race mixing. Then the school board forced us to integrate. They combined the white school and the black school into one, called T.C. Williams High School.
Okay, so then right after that, it goes back to the beginning of the story. And so this is actually the end of the movie. This is the scene from the end that kind of wraps the whole story up, but they start with it to show you kind of where they ended up to start the story, if that makes sense. So, you know, nonlinear plot is taking, like if you had a whole movie and taking a section of it and putting it at the beginning, or chopping it up and putting it throughout the story, and then finishing the story through its entirety at the end. Okay, so maybe to help you a little bit more, there's another example in this video that I'll show you. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Forrest Gump, but that is also a very good example Forrest Gump is a good example, but then also Saving Private Ryan. So this is a movie about, it's a war movie it's a little older, so some of you may not have seen it, but if you know what it is, this is a great example of nonlinear plot. It's kind of the same concept as Remember the Titans. So take a look real quick.
I have to show you all the boring bits that happen in between the moments we see in the film. But by far, the simplest form of non-linear narrative is visible in a film called Saving Private Ryan. At the start of the film, we see an old veteran and his family visiting the Normandy Memorial Site. Upon reaching a certain grave, the veteran breaks down and we start to hear gunshots and explosions, which leads to a flashback, and then proceeds to tell us the story. All this story does, which many others also do, is starting at the end before flashing back and then playing the narrative in a linear fashion. But because the ending is at the beginning, it's technically a non-linear narrative, and so it couldn't be much simpler than that. So there you have it, the two basic narrative devices that you can use to tell a story. That wasn't hard, right? Right? I didn't lose you.
Okay, so again, the nonlinear plot structure is just that it's not a normal line of a story. And so it takes the pieces from a story and kind of inserts them in different places. The most simplest form is like Saving Private Ryan or Remember the Titans, where they take the end scene, put it at the beginning, and then continue through with the normal linear plot, going through the whole story. Whereas the linear plot would just start at the beginning. So like on Remember the Titans, it would not have that opening piece. It would just go straight into the story. And then go from there. So technically, the concept of the linear and nonlinear plot is not tested necessarily, but it is something that's good to know. The standard is actually asking you to be able to analyze why and like kind of the difference between the two types of plot structures and what that does for the story. And so these are a few TV shows that also have nonlinear plot structures. So if you're interested in like exploring that a little more to understand it better and maybe kind of get a feel for what the reason is behind it, then you can watch any of these and it would help you better understand maybe why authors or writers do this in literature as well. But nonlinear plot structure is going to give you a little peek into why the story is the way it is. And then later on, it'll make sense once it all connects. Linear plot structure is just going to take you through the story and just kind of takes it for its value, face value. All right, so it's going to add a little bit more importance and a little bit more intrigue to do a nonlinear plot structure, but both are very common and both are very useful in writing and in literature. So hopefully this helps you understand a little bit better about linear and nonlinear plot structure. We empower, we impact, we love. We are Skeeter Nation.